My mom let my stepdad kick me out at 12 over my stepsister's lies, but 8 years later, she broke into my studio to steal my work. Security cameras caught everything. Now she has a criminal record, and I make $10K a month. I'm 20 years old. I work as a freelance designer and programmer, and if someone had told me 8 years ago that I was going to be where I am now, I probably would have laughed in their face. I mean, when you're 12 years old and you're getting kicked out of your own house for something you didn't do, the last thing you think is that you're going to end up working with big clients and living in a decent studio with your own business. But anyway, I guess I should start at the beginning, because this story is long and has a lot of parts that I still have trouble processing, even though years have passed. My dad died when I was 10 years old. Heart attack. Completely out of nowhere. Like on a random Tuesday. He was at work and just collapsed. He was my best friend. My hero. You know, that typical father-son relationship where your dad is literally the coolest person in the world. We played video games together. He helped me with homework. He taught me to ride a bike. All those things. When he died, it was like someone had turned off a light in my life. I don't know how else to explain it. My mom was devastated, obviously, and so was I, but it was just her and me now, and I thought we were going to be in this together, that we were going to take care of each other. Boy, was I wrong. Not even a year and a half passed before my mom met Carl. Carl was, and still is, one of the most obnoxious people I've ever met in my life. He sold, I don't know what thing, I think office equipment or something like that, and he acted like he was this big, successful businessman, when really he was just a normal guy with a normal job. But my mom was alone and vulnerable, and I guess Carl knew exactly what to say because before I knew it, they were engaged. And Carl had a daughter, Jessica, who was a year older than me. From the moment I met her, I knew there was something off about her. She had this way of looking at you, like she was calculating how to use anything you said against you. You know what I mean? When they got married and Carl and Jessica moved into our house, everything changed. And when I say everything, I mean everything. First, Carl decided that Jessica needed my room because it was bigger, so they moved me to the guest room, which was basically a glorified closet. My stuff, my toys, my posters, all that stuff my dad had given me over the years, Carl said it was time to grow up and let go of the past. So a lot of that ended up in the trash or stored in the garage. My mom didn't say anything. Literally nothing. She just looked the other way every time I tried to complain. It was like she had decided that keeping Carl happy was more important than protecting me. Jessica was a compulsive liar, and the worst part is, she was really good at it. She could cry whenever she wanted. She could make innocent faces. And Carl believed absolutely everything she said. If something disappeared, I was the culprit. If something broke, I had done it. One day, I came home from school, and Carl was furious because supposedly I had broken Jessica's favorite perfume, a bottle that cost like $80, and when I tried to say that I hadn't even been in her room, he told me to stop lying. My mom was there and just said, "Gabriel, just apologize." And I just stood there thinking, apologize for what? For something I didn't do? But I had to do it because if not, Carl would ground me or take away my computer privileges, which was literally the only thing that made me happy at that time. Things got gradually worse. Carl made me do all the household chores while Jessica didn't lift a finger. I washed the dishes, took out the trash, mowed the lawn, cleaned the bathrooms, and Jessica just sat and watched TV or was on her phone. If I complained, Carl said, I needed to learn responsibility and discipline. The food was different too. Like, Carl would buy good stuff for him and Jessica, like premium ice cream or those expensive snacks, but for me, he'd leave leftovers or generic brands. My mom cooked, but the bigger portions were always for Carl and Jessica. I don't know if she did it consciously or if she just didn't care anymore. When I was 12, almost 13, what basically completely destroyed my life for years happened. Jessica and I went to the same school, her in 8th grade and me in 7th. One day, there was a huge scandal because someone stole the answers to an important math exam from one of the teacher's offices. The principal called several students in to investigate, and suddenly Jessica accused me. She said she had seen me near the teacher's office that day, that I had shown her the answers, trying to impress her, that she even had proof. The proof was text messages that she herself had fabricated, probably sending them to herself from my phone when I wasn't looking, because I didn't even know what she was talking about. The school suspended me immediately while they investigated. Carl went absolutely crazy when he found out, literally, screaming in my face, calling me a thief, telling me I was a disgrace. My mom, again, just watched. I tried to explain to them that Jessica was lying, that I hadn't done anything, but Carl didn't want to listen. Then the investigation continued and they found the exam answers hidden in my backpack. I never put them there. Obviously it was Jessica, but nobody believed me. The school expelled me. 12 years old and expelled for something I didn't do. Can you believe it? When I got home that day after being officially expelled, Carl already had all my stuff in bags on the porch. I'm not exaggerating. There were like 4 black trash bags with my clothes, some books, my old laptop that my dad had given me, and that was it. Carl told me, "You have 10 minutes to get out of my house. I'm not going to have a delinquent living under my roof." I was 12 years old. 12. And this guy was kicking me out on the street. I tried to talk to my mom. She was standing there in the doorway, and I told her, "Mom, please, tell him I'm telling the truth." I didn't do anything, but she just shook her head and said, "Gabriel, I think it's better if you leave for a while until things calm down." I stood there with my bags, crying, and Carl started making up more things to justify kicking me out. He said I had been stealing money from his wallet, that he had found drugs in my room, total lie, that I was violent with Jessica, another lie. Basically anything to make me look like this monster. Jessica was behind him, and I swear I saw a little smile on her face. Like, all of this amused her. I don't know what I did to make her hate me so much. To this day I don't understand it, but she clearly wanted to destroy me. I called my grandpa, my mom's dad, from a neighbor's phone because Carl had already taken my cell phone. My grandpa lived like 40 minutes away and got there as fast as he could. When he saw the situation, when Carl started yelling at him too, saying I was a problem and that if he tried to defend me, then he wasn't welcome either, my grandpa just helped me load my stuff into his car and we left. On the way to his house, I was crying so hard I could barely breathe, and my grandpa just kept telling me, "It's okay, son. You're going to be okay. I've got you. Don't worry." Living with my grandpa saved my life, literally. He was like 68 years old at that time, already retired, and lived in a small but cozy house. He gave me his guest room and we decorated it with things I wanted. He enrolled me in a new school near his house and talked to the administrators explaining the situation, basically that I had been unfairly expelled from my previous school for false accusations. The new school accepted me, but put me in a probationary program where I had to maintain good grades and good behavior. My grandpa still worked part-time, doing consulting for a construction company, so we didn't have a lot of money, but what we had he shared with me without problem. He never made me feel like a burden. He bought me school supplies, clothes when I needed them, and always made sure there was food in the house. But more important than all that, he listened to me. We talked for hours about what had happened, about my dad, about how I felt, and he never judged me or made me feel bad. It was my grandpa who noticed I had talent for design. I had always drawn since I was little, but I never thought it was anything serious. One day he saw me doing some sketches in my notebook, logo designs for fictional brands I made up, and he told me, "Gabriel, this is amazing. You should learn to do this digitally." He helped me find tutorials on YouTube about graphic design and basic programming. We downloaded free software, like GIMP, and then when I could get trial versions of Photoshop, and I started practicing every day after school. I became obsessed. Honestly, it was like my escape from everything that had happened. While I was designing or programming small projects, I didn't think about my mom, or Carl, or Jessica, and it was just me and the screen, and the things I was creating. By the time I was 15, I was already pretty good. I started doing freelance gigs, like designing logos for small local businesses, making flyers, that kind of thing. I charged cheap because I was just starting out, but the money helped. I gave half to my grandpa to help with household expenses, although he always tried to make me keep it all. At school I was doing well. Not perfect, but well. And I had some friends. Nobody really knew what had happened with my family, I just said I lived with my grandpa, and people assumed it was temporary or that my parents were working somewhere else or something. I didn't talk about it because I was embarrassed. I guess, or maybe because it still hurt too much. When I was 17, about to graduate from high school, my mom showed up out of nowhere at my grandpa's house. She knocked on the door on a Saturday morning, and when I opened it and saw her standing there, I honestly didn't know how to feel. It had been like 5 years since the last time I'd seen her. She looked older, more tired, and had this desperate expression on her face. She told me, "Gabriel, I need to talk to you." And I let her in because my grandpa wasn't there, and I didn't know what else to do. She sat in the living room and started telling me that Carl had lost his job, that things were very difficult financially, that Jessica was in college but they couldn't pay the full tuition. And then she got to the real reason for her visit. She needed money. She told me, "I know you're probably working or have savings, and I know we owe you a lot, but could you help us? Just a little, whatever you can." I sat there looking at her, and the only thing I was thinking was, seriously? Seriously? 5 years without talking to me. After letting them kick me out of the house for false accusations when I was 12 years old? And now she comes asking me for money? I told her no. I told her I didn't have money to give them, that I could barely support myself. My mom started crying, saying I was her son, that she needed me, that family supports each other, and I exploded. I told her, "Family? You're talking to me about family? Where were you when Carl kicked me out? Where were you when Jessica ruined my life? You just stood there without doing anything, Mom. Without saying a word to defend me. So, no, I'm not going to help you now." She left crying, and I felt bad for a moment, but then I talked to my grandpa and he told me I had done the right thing, that I didn't owe them anything. Things kept happening in my mom and Carl's life. I found out through mutual acquaintances, and because sometimes my grandpa heard things that Jessica got kicked out of college for plagiarism, basically copying other students' work and submitting it as her own, which didn't surprise me at all, because she had always been a liar and a cheater. Carl tried to start his own business, selling I don't know what products, but it collapsed in less than a year because apparently he was terrible at managing money. Eventually they lost the house, that house that had originally been mine with my dad, where I grew up. They had to move to a tiny apartment, and from there my mom sent me text messages asking for help again. I blocked her number. It sounds harsh, I know, but I couldn't deal with it anymore. Every time she contacted me, it was to ask me for something, never to apologize, never to ask me how I was or to admit she had done wrong. She just wanted money or favors. So I blocked her, Carl, Jessica, everyone. My grandpa supported me in that decision completely, but it didn't end there. When I was 18 and had just started college, E was studying graphic design and programming formally, paying with scholarships, student loans, and my freelance work. My mom sued me. Yes, she legally sued me, demanding maintenance, or financial support or something like that, arguing that as her son, I had a legal obligation to help her financially. It was the most absurd thing I had ever heard. I had to hire a lawyer, which cost me money I didn't have, and we went to court. In court, I presented evidence that she had kicked me out of the house when I was a minor, that she hadn't had contact with me for years except to ask for money, and that I was barely starting my adult life with student debt and my own expenses. The judge dismissed the case almost immediately, saying there was no legal basis for what my mom was asking for, and that it was ridiculous to expect an 8-year-old son to support his mother when she had abandoned him as a minor. My mom and Carl left that courtroom without saying a word, but Jessica shot me a look that was basically pure hatred. I continued with my life, focusing on my studies and my freelance business that kept growing. By the time I was 19, I was already working with bigger clients, medium-sized companies that needed complete branding, websites, basic applications. I was making enough money to move into my own small apartment, stay in college, and help my grandpa with his expenses, although he always protested saying it wasn't necessary. Then Jessica pulled another one of her stunts. She found my online portfolio, where I had examples of my designs and projects, and basically stole a bunch of my work. She posted them on her Instagram, pretending they were hers, saying she was a freelance graphic designer available for contracts. She changed some colors or moved elements minimally so they weren't exactly the same, but anyone who saw my original portfolio and her posts could tell they were my designs. Several people started tagging me in her posts saying, "Hey, isn't this yours?" And sure enough, there was Jessica using my work to try to get clients. I filed copyright reports on Instagram with clear evidence that those designs were mine, including original files with creation dates, emails with clients, everything. Instagram removed the content from her account and gave her a warning. Jessica got furious and started sending me messages. She had created new accounts because I had her blocked, saying I was ruining her life, that she was just trying to make a living just like me, that we were family and I should support her. I responded just once, saying, "Stealing my work isn't making a living, it's being a thief," and I blocked her again. But she didn't stop there. Jessica and her boyfriend, a guy named Nathan who was just as trashy as she was, went to the police and filed a report saying I was selling counterfeit designs, that I was scamming clients, basically trying to ruin my reputation and my business. The cops came to talk to me, and I showed them all my documentation, contracts with clients, software licenses, proof that all my work was legitimate and original. I also showed them evidence that Jessica had stolen my designs. The officers apologized for the inconvenience and told me the report was clearly false. I fought back legally by filing defamation charges against Jessica and Nathan. My lawyer, the same one who had helped me with my mom's case and who now charged me reduced rates because he liked me, sent cease and desist letters, and we filed a civil lawsuit. I wasn't expecting to win much money. Honestly, I just wanted them to stop messing with me. But I wanted there to be legal consequences so they would understand they couldn't keep doing this. Things got worse before they got better. Jessica, probably desperate because the legal case wasn't going in her favor and her life in general was a mess, decided to do something completely insane. By that time, I was 20 years old and had rented a small studio where I worked on my bigger projects. Like a shared office space, but I had my own little room with a lock. I had my equipment there, computers, graphics tablet, and I also stored some physical design pieces, like prints and prototypes of products I had designed for clients. One night, like at 2 inches the morning, I got an alert on my phone from the building's security system. Someone had entered my studio. I checked the security cameras from the app on my cell phone, and there was Jessica, clear as day under the hallway lights, forcing the door to my studio open with some kind of tool. I called the police immediately and drove over there, even though I lived like 25 minutes away. By the time I got there, the police were already there and had arrested Jessica. They had found her inside my studio with a bag full of my original designs, the prints I had mentioned, some USB drives with work files, basically everything she could grab. The security cameras had recorded everything perfectly. There was no way she could deny what she had done. The officers let me into the studio accompanied, and I saw the mess. She had thrown things around, broken some frames, probably looking for specific valuable items. Jessica was formally arrested for breaking and entering and theft. The pieces she stole were returned, but some were damaged, which cost me money and time to redo for the clients who were waiting for them. I pressed full criminal charges. I didn't drop anything. My lawyer told me that with the video evidence and the arrest in the act, the case was solid. Jessica potentially faced jail time or at least probation, fines, a criminal record, all of that. Carl tried to call me after that, left voice messages crying, saying Jessica was going through a difficult time, that I didn't understand, that family should forgive each other. I deleted the messages without listening to them completely. My mom also tried to contact me through my grandpa, asking him to intercede, but my grandpa told her directly that she had lost the right to ask me for anything years ago. The legal case ran its course. Jessica ended up accepting a plea deal with the prosecutor where she admitted guilt in exchange for a reduced sentence, probation, community service, a restraining order so she couldn't approach me or my business, and she had to pay restitution for the damages to my designs. She didn't go to prison, but now she has a criminal record, which will probably make it difficult for her to get a decent job in the future. And honestly, I don't feel bad about that at all. Meanwhile, things with Carl also got complicated for them. I found out through third parties that Carl finally faced legal consequences for some shady things he had been doing with his businesses, like tax evasion or fraud. I don't know exactly the details, but he ended up with jail time, something like 2 years. My mom was basically left alone. Jessica lived somewhere else, avoiding me because of the restraining order, and Carl was in prison. Part of me felt something. I don't know if it was pity or what, but then I remembered everything they had done to me, and that feeling disappeared. Now I'm 20. My freelance business became my full-time career. I work with big clients, companies that pay well, and I'm building a good reputation in the industry. I ended up leaving college because, honestly, I was making more money working than I would make with a degree, and clients didn't ask for diplomas but for portfolio and results. I live in a decent apartment. It's nothing fancy, but it's mine, and I have enough money to live comfortably and save. My grandpa is proud of me. That's what matters most to me. He's almost 78 years old now, and his health isn't perfect, but I visit him often and we sit down to drink coffee and talk about how things are going. Sometimes he asks me if I'll ever forgive my mom or if I'll try to have some kind of relationship with her, and honestly, I don't know the answer. There are days where I think that maybe when I'm older, when more time has passed, I could at least talk to her and have closure. But there are also days where I think that some things can't be forgiven, that there are lines, that when you cross them, there's no going back. Jessica is still a completely closed topic for me. I don't feel anything for her, except maybe some satisfaction that she finally faced consequences for her actions. Carl can rot wherever he is. Honestly, that guy destroyed my childhood and he wasn't even my biological father, just a jerk who convinced my mom that I was a problem so he could have total control over her. Did all this affect me? Of course it did. I've been going to therapy for like 2 years. Something I started when I finally had money to pay for it, and it's helped a lot to process all the shit from my childhood and adolescence. I have trust issues. Obviously, I have a hard time opening up to people, and I'm always expecting people to disappoint me or betray me, but I'm working on it. What I can say is that I got ahead despite everything. It could have turned out very differently, like if my grandpa hadn't been there to pick me up when I was 12 years old. I don't know where I'd be now. Probably in a very dark place. But I was lucky in that sense, and I took advantage of that luck. I worked hard, I focused on developing real skills, and I built something for myself without help from anyone but my grandpa. Do I feel like I owe anything to my mom, Carl, or Jessica? Absolutely not. They made their choices. I made mine. They decided to kick me out when I needed them most, decided to believe a manipulative liar instead of me, decided to use me and attack me whenever it was convenient for them. I decided to survive, decided to succeed, and decided not to let them destroy me. And I think I made the right choices. Last week, I got an email from a new client, a tech startup that needs to completely redesign their branding and their web platform. It's the biggest project I've gotten so far, the kind of work that 2 years ago I didn't even dream of getting. I was reading the project details and thinking about how I was going to structure the proposal when my phone rang. It was my grandpa, calling just to ask how I was, if I had eaten, those things. I told him about the new client and I could hear the smile in his voice when he told me, "I knew you were going to go far, mijo. I always knew it, and that's enough for me. I don't need the approval or recognition of people who abandon me. I have the person who really mattered when I needed them most, and I have a life I built with my own hands. And honestly, that feels like the best revenge possible."